Let me tell you about the day my whole world went sideways. It was a Tuesday morning, 6:30, and I was doing what I always do, prepping for the breakfast rush. My diner sits right on Main Street in Ridgefield, Montana, population 3,200 and change. We're the kind of town where everybody knows everybody, where your business is everyone's business, and where a handshake still means something. Or at least I thought it did. I was mixing up my famous buttermilk pancake batter. OHH, by the way, I'm Rose McAllister, 73 years old, and until last year, I thought I knew everything there was to know about running a restaurant and raising a family. Turns out I didn't know squat about how low some people will go when they smell money. Anyways, let's continue. I was preparing my pancake batter, the recipe my mama taught me back in 1965 when my son Danny's wife, Christina, walked in through the back door. Now, Christina showing up at the diner at 6:30 in the morning was about as common as snow in July. That girl never crawled out of bed before 10 if she could help it. "Morning, Rose," she said, all perky and fake sweet. "Got a minute to talk? I'm prepping for breakfast, honey. Can it wait till after the rush?" She sat down at the counter anyway, pulling out this fancy leather folder. "No, actually it can't. This is important. It's about the diner." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. I set down my mixing bowl and wiped my hands on my apron. "What about the diner?" Christina opened that folder and slid a stack of papers across the counter. "Danny and I have been talking. You're getting older, Rose. Running this place is getting to be too much for you. We think it's time you retired. Let us take over." I stared at those papers like they were a rattlesnake coiled up on my counter. "Take over." "Christina, I'm 73, not dead. I can run circles around most people half my age." She gave me this patronizing smile that made my blood pressure spike. "Of course you can, but why should you have to? You've worked so hard for so long. Don't you want to relax, travel, enjoy your golden years?" I picked up the papers. They were transfer documents, legal papers that would sign over ownership of Rose's diner from me to Danny and Christina. I flipped through them, my hands shaking, not from age but from anger. "Where's Danny?" I asked. "Does he know you're here with these papers? He's waiting in the car. He didn't want to pressure you." "But Rose, we really think this is what's best for everyone. We've already talked to a property developer. The diner and the land it sits on are worth about $2 million, maybe more, $2 million. There it was. The real reason for this little morning visit. "You want to sell my diner?" I said, my voice getting that edge that my regulars knew meant someone was about to get tossed out on their rear end. "Not sell," Christina said quickly. "Well, not right away. We'd run it for a while, modernize it, maybe turn it into something more upscale. Then, eventually, if the right offer came along." "Get out," I said. "Rose, be reasonable. Get out of my diner, now." She stood up, all huffy and offended. "You're making a huge mistake, Rose. Danny and I are trying to help you. We're family. Family doesn't try to steal your life's work at 6:30 in the morning with fake concern and legal papers. Now get out before I call the sheriff." Christina grabbed her folder and stomped out. Through the window, I could see her getting into Danny's truck. They sat there for a few minutes, her talking animatedly, him looking miserable, and then they drove off. I stood there in my empty diner, my pancake batter forgotten, and tried to process what had just happened. My daughter-in-law had just tried to con me into signing over my business. And my son, my only child, had been sitting out in that truck letting it happen. The breakfast rush came and went in a blur. I smiled at my regulars, poured coffee, flipped eggs, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. By 10 o'clock, when things slowed down, I called my best friend, Martha Henderson. Martha and I had been friends since third grade. She'd been my maid of honor when I married my late husband, Earl, and I'd been hers when she married her husband, Jim. "Martha, I need to talk. Can you come by the diner?" She was there in 15 minutes. I poured us both coffee and told her everything. Martha listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I've always loved about her. When I finished, she stirred 3 sugars into her coffee and looked at me with those sharp blue eyes. "Rose, honey, did you sign anything? Anything at all?" "No, I told her to get out before I even looked at most of the papers." "Good. Because what Christina did, that's called elder abuse, financial exploitation. It's illegal in Montana. She was trying to pressure you into signing over a $2 million asset using fake concern about your age." I never thought about it like that. I just thought she was being greedy. She's being greedy, but she's also breaking the law. Martha pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my nephew, Trevor. He's a lawyer over in Billings. He specializes in estate planning and elder law." "I don't need a lawyer, Martha. I didn't sign anything. Not yet, but Christina's not going to give up. If she tried once, she'll try again. You need to protect yourself, Rose. And you need to do it fast." Trevor Henderson arrived at the diner that same afternoon. He was a sharp young man in his early 40s, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt, which I appreciated. "I don't trust lawyers who wear suits to small-town diners." "Mrs. McAllister," Trevor said, shaking my hand. Aunt Martha filled me in. "What Christina attempted this morning is serious. Do you have copies of the papers she tried to get you to sign?" No, she took them with her when I kicked her out. That's okay. We'll get them in discovery if it comes to that. But first, I need to understand your current situation. Do you have a will, a trust, power of attorney documents? I've got a will. Earl and I set it up about 30 years ago. When he died 10 years back, I updated it to leave everything to Danny. The diner, the house, my savings, everything. And does Danny know this? Of course he knows. He's my only child. Who else would I leave it to? Trevor made some notes. Mrs. McAllister, I need to ask you some hard questions. Has Danny or Christina tried to influence your financial decisions before today? Have they asked you for large sums of money? Tried to get you to add Christina's name to any accounts or property deeds? I thought about it. Well, about 6 months ago, Christina suggested I should add her name to my bank accounts. She said it would make things easier if something happened to me. I told her no, said I'd think about it. Did she pressure you after you said no? She brought it up a few more times. Danny mentioned it too, said Christina was just trying to help, but I kept saying no. I didn't like the feel of it. Trust your instincts, Mrs. McAllister. They were right. Trevor leaned forward. Here's what I think is happening. Christina has been researching your assets. She knows the diner is valuable, probably knows about your savings and your house too. She's been laying groundwork for months trying to get access to your finances. When you kept refusing, she escalated to this morning's attempt. Now that you've refused again, she's going to escalate further. What do you mean, escalate? She'll start spreading rumors that you're not capable of running the diner anymore. That you're forgetful, confused, maybe even showing signs of dementia. She'll try to build a case that you need a guardian, someone to take over your affairs, and she'll position Danny as that guardian. But I'm not confused or forgetful. Everyone in this town knows I'm sharp as a tack. Doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is whether she can make it seem plausible. And in small towns, Rose, rumors spread fast. Trevor pulled out some documents from his briefcase. We need to act now before she gets ahead of this narrative. I want to do 3 things. First, I want you to get a complete medical and cognitive evaluation from a doctor, proving you're of sound mind. Second, I want to establish a revocable living trust that protects your assets and clearly defines how they can and cannot be accessed. Third, I want to install security cameras in the diner and your home. Security cameras? Why? Because if Christina is bold enough to try what she tried this morning, she's bold enough to do other things. She might try to steal documents, forge signatures, or create situations that make you look incompetent. We need video evidence of everything that happens from now on. It felt like overkill, but something in Trevor's serious expression convinced me. Okay, let's do it. Over the next week, Trevor worked fast. I went to see Dr. Patricia Williams, who'd been my doctor for 20 years. She put me through a whole battery of tests, cognitive assessments, physical exams, the works. At the end of it all, she sat me down in her office. Rose, she said with a smile, you're in better shape than most 50-year-olds I see. Your memory is excellent, your decision-making capacity is sound, and your physical health is remarkable for your age. Whatever Christina is trying to pull, it won't hold up to medical scrutiny. Dr. Williams wrote up a detailed report that Trevor said would be admissible in court if it came to that. Meanwhile, Trevor set up the trust, a complex legal structure that protected the diner, my house, and my savings. He named Martha and her husband Jim as co-trustees, people who could step in if I ever actually did need help, but who had no financial interest in my assets. And the security cameras went in, 4 in the diner, covering every entrance in the main dining area, 2 at my house, 1 at the front door and 1 at the back. Trevor showed me how to access the footage from my phone. You're documenting everything now, Rose. If Christina or Danny try anything, we'll have proof. I felt paranoid, like I was preparing for war with my own family. But as it turned out, Trevor's instincts were dead on. 3 days after the cameras went in, Danny showed up at the diner. It was mid-afternoon, the slow time between lunch and dinner. I was restocking the pie case when he walked in, looking uncomfortable. Hey Ma, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Danny, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Want some coffee? Yeah, that'd be good. I poured him a cup and sat down across from him in the booth. We looked at each other for a long moment. Danny was 45 years old, with my late husband's dark hair and my green eyes. He'd been such a sweet kid. When did he become someone I didn't recognize? Ma, about what Christina did last week, Danny started. I didn't know she was going to do that. I mean, I knew she wanted to talk to you about the diner, but I didn't know she was going to spring those papers on you like that. But you were sitting in the truck, Danny. You let her come in here alone to pressure me. He looked down at his coffee. I know, that was wrong, I'm sorry. Are you, or are you just sorry it didn't work? His head snapped up. That's not fair, Ma, isn't it? Danny, that woman walked in here with papers that would have transferred my business to you too. A business worth $2 million. And you're telling me you had no idea? Christina handles a lot of the financial stuff. She's good with paperwork and legal things. So good that she tried to con your own mother out of her life's work. Danny's face flushed. It wasn't like that. We were just trying to help. You're getting older, Ma. Running this place, it's a lot of work. We thought if we took it over, you could retire, relax. I don't want to relax, Danny. I want to work. This diner is my life. It's what I do. Taking it away from me wouldn't be helping me. It'd be killing me. We wouldn't take it away. We'd just manage it for you. And then sell it to the highest bidder, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Danny stood up. Christina told me you'd be like this. Stubborn, paranoid, unable to accept help. Help, Danny. She tried to steal my diner. She was trying to protect your legacy. Our legacy. This diner is supposed to be my inheritance. Why shouldn't I have a say in what happens to it? There it was, the real issue, the entitlement, the belief that because he was my son, my assets were already his. Danny, I said slowly, trying to keep my temper in check. This diner will be yours when I'm dead. Until then, it's mine, and I'll decide what happens to it. He looked at me with something like pity. Christina said you'd say that too. She said you're too proud to admit you can't handle things anymore. Ma, people are talking. They're saying you're slipping, that you forget orders, mix up bills, that the quality isn't what it used to be. The accusation hit like a slap. That's a lie. Who's saying that? I hear things. Customers complain. Which customers? Give me names. Danny couldn't, because there weren't any. It was exactly what Trevor had predicted. Christina was spreading rumors, trying to build a narrative of incompetence. Get out, I said quietly. Ma. Get out of my diner, Danny. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize for letting your wife try to steal from me and for spreading lies about me all over this town. He left, and I sat there in the empty diner, shaking. Not from fear, but from anger and heartbreak. That was my son, my only child, and he'd chosen his wife's greed over his own mother. The rumors got worse over the next few weeks. I'd hear whispers when I went to the grocery store. See pitying looks from people I'd known for 40 years. Someone started a Facebook post about how sad it was that Rose at the diner was losing it, but wouldn't admit she needed help. Martha was furious. She and Jim went on a counter campaign, posting their own comments about how I was sharper than ever, how the diner was thriving, how Christina was spreading malicious lies. It helped, but the damage was done. Seeds of doubt had been planted. Then things got really nasty. I came into the diner one morning to find the lock on the back door had been tampered with. Nothing was taken, but someone had definitely tried to break in. I called Sheriff Tom Bradley, who'd been eating breakfast at my diner for 30 years. Tom looked at the scratched lock and shook his head. Looks like someone tried to jimmy it open. Didn't succeed, though. Your lock's pretty good. You got any idea who might try to break into the diner, Rose? I've got suspicions, Tom, but no proof. He looked at me knowingly. Your daughter-in-law causing trouble. How'd you know about that? Rose, everyone in town knows about that. Half the folks think Christina's a gold digger trying to steal your diner. The other half think she's trying to help you and you're too stubborn to accept it. What do you think, Tom? I think you make the best coffee in Montana and you've got a good head on your shoulders. If you say Christina's up to no good, I believe you. But I can't arrest someone for trying to break into a diner when there's no proof of who did it. I showed him the security camera footage from that night. It showed a figure in dark clothing and a baseball cap approaching the back door around 2 in the morning. The person tried the door, worked on the lock for about 10 minutes, then gave up and left. The footage was grainy, the person's face never visible. Tom studied the footage. Can't identify them from this. Could be anyone. But Rose, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll increase patrols around the diner at night. And I'd suggest you upgrade your locks to something harder to pick. That afternoon, Trevor came by with a locksmith who installed commercial-grade locks on all the doors. Then Trevor sat me down with a serious expression. Rose, we need to talk about your will. What about it? If something happens to you, everything goes to Danny. Given what's happening with Christina, that's a problem. She's already tried to steal the diner once. If you died, she'd get it through Danny. The thought made me sick, but he's my son, Trevor. I can't just disinherit him. I'm not suggesting you disinherit him. I'm suggesting you restructure how he inherits. We can put everything in a trust that Danny can access only under certain conditions. He gets income from the trust, but he can't sell assets without approval from the trustees. It prevents Christina from getting her hands on your life's work and liquidating it. What if Danny doesn't want those restrictions? Then that tells you something about his intentions. Trevor pulled out more documents. Rose, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can spot financial predators from a mile away. Christina is a predator. She married Danny because she researched his background and knew he was your only heir. She's been planning this takeover from day one. The question is, how far is she willing to go? What do you mean? I mean, if she's willing to break into your diner, forge documents, and spread malicious rumors, what else is she willing to do? These situations can escalate. I've seen cases where people who couldn't steal an inheritance decided to accelerate it. You think Christina would try to hurt me? I think Christina views you as an obstacle to $2 million. I think you need to be very, very careful. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Trevor had said. Would Christina really try to hurt me? It seemed crazy. But then again, everything that had happened seemed crazy. At 2 in the morning, lying in my bed, I heard a noise from downstairs. A soft scraping sound like something metal against metal. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera app. On the screen, I could see someone at my back door. Same dark clothing, same baseball cap, but this time they'd brought better tools. They were working on the new lock, and from the way they were moving, they knew what they were doing. I called 911, whispering into the phone, "There's someone trying to break into my house." The dispatcher kept me on the line. "Ma'am, stay in your bedroom with the door locked. Officers are on their way." The person on my camera kept working. 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. The figure's head snapped up, listening. Then they ran, disappearing into the darkness before the sheriff's deputies arrived. Tom Bradley showed up right behind his deputies. He watched the security footage, his expression grim. "That's the same person from the diner, Rose. Same clothing, same build, same MO. They're escalating. First the diner, now you're home." "Who is it, Tom? Can you tell from the footage? The build looks female. Medium height, maybe 5'6" or so. Moving like someone younger, agile." Tom looked at me. "How tall is Christina?" "About 5'6", I said quietly. "I'm not saying it's her, but Rose, you need to consider staying somewhere else for a while. With Martha maybe, or at a hotel, until we figure out what's going on. I'm not leaving my home, Tom. My husband and I built this house with our own 2 hands. I'm not letting anyone scare me out of it. Then I'm stationing a deputy outside your house tonight and every night until we catch whoever's doing this." True to his word, a sheriff's cruiser sat in my driveway that whole night. I still didn't sleep much. The next morning, Martha showed up at my house at 7 with coffee and determination written all over her face. "Rose McAllister, you look like death warmed over. How much sleep did you get?" "Maybe 2 hours, that's what I thought." Martha set down the coffee. "Jim and I talked last night. You're moving in with us until this is sorted out." "Martha, I can't." "Yes, you can and you will. We've got that guest room that's just sitting empty. You'll stay with us and the diner can stay open because you'll be safe. No arguments." I wanted to argue, but the truth was I was scared. Someone was targeting me, trying to break into my home, and I had a pretty good idea who it was even if I couldn't prove it. I packed a bag and moved into Martha and Jim's house that same day. It felt like admitting defeat, like letting Christina win, but it also felt like survival. Trevor called that afternoon with news. "Rose, I've been doing some digging into Christina's background. You might want to sit down for this." I sat down on Martha's couch, my stomach already knotting. "Christina isn't her real name, it's Crystal Ann Morrison. She's got a record. 3 arrests in Colorado for fraud, 1 conviction. She served 18 months in prison for defrauding an elderly man out of $75,000. She used a fake identity when she moved to Montana. Danny has no idea who he really married. Oh my God, I breathed, there's more. I found her online presence before she met Danny. She was active on forums about inheritance law, about how to access elderly relatives' assets, about power of attorney. Rose, she was literally researching how to steal from seniors before she ever met your son. We need to tell Danny. I already tried. I called him this morning. He hung up on me. Said I was trying to poison him against his wife, that you'd put me up to this. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't want to believe it. Christina's been working on him for 5 years, isolating him from you, making him dependent on her. She's good at what she does, but Rose, we have enough now to go to the sheriff with a formal complaint. We can prove she's using a false identity, show her criminal history, document the attempted break-ins. We can get a restraining order at minimum, possibly criminal charges. Do it, I said. I'm done being nice. I'm done hoping she'll just go away. Let's nail her. Trevor filed the complaint that afternoon. The evidence was comprehensive. Christina's fake identity, her criminal record, the attempted break-ins caught on camera, the forged documents she tried to get me to sign, testimony from witnesses about her rumor campaign. 2 days later, Sheriff Tom Bradley arrested Christina at the house she shared with Danny. The charges were identity fraud, attempted burglary, and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. The bail was set at $50,000. Danny posted it. He sold his truck to raise the money. Martha told me because I couldn't bear to hear it from Danny himself. My son had chosen his criminal wife over his own mother. He'd literally sold his vehicle to bail out a woman who was trying to steal my life's work. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Trevor said it was a strong case, that Christina would likely take a plea deal to avoid trial. But I wasn't interested in plea deals. I wanted the truth exposed in court. I wanted everyone to see what she'd tried to do. The hearing was held at the county courthouse in front of Judge Malcolm Rodriguez. The courtroom was packed. Half the town showed up, including most of my regular customers from the diner. The The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Chen, laid out the case methodically. Christina's real identity, her criminal history, the attempted break-ins. The forged documents, the campaign of rumors designed to make me look incompetent. Every piece of evidence carefully documented and presented. Christina's lawyer, a public defender who looked overwhelmed, tried to argue that the break-ins couldn't be definitively linked to his client, that the security footage wasn't clear enough to identify the perpetrator. Then Trevor dropped the bomb. "Your Honor," he said, standing up. "The defense claims the security footage doesn't clearly show Miss Morrison's face. That's true. However, we have additional evidence that wasn't included in the original complaint." "May I approach?" Judge Rodriguez nodded. Trevor handed documents to the judge and to the prosecutor. "These are cell phone records showing Miss Morrison's phone was located at Mrs. McAllister's property during both attempted break-ins. The phone's GPS data places her at the exact location at the exact times the break-ins occurred." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Christina went pale. Her lawyer looked at the documents and then at his client with something like betrayal in his eyes. "Additionally," Trevor continued, "we have security footage from a gas station 2 blocks from Mrs. McAllister's home. The footage shows Miss Morrison purchasing the lock-picking tools used in the break-in, attempts 3 hours before the first incident." Judge Rodriguez reviewed the documents. "Miss Morrison, do you have any explanation for why your phone was at Mrs. McAllister's property at 2 in the morning on 2 separate occasions?" Christina stood up, her voice shaking. "I was worried about Rose. I wanted to check on her, make sure she was okay. By breaking into her home, I wasn't breaking in, I was just checking. With lock-picking tools you purchased specifically for that purpose?" Christina had no answer. Judge Rodriguez's expression hardened. "Miss Morrison, or should I say Miss Crystal Morrison, given that you've been using a false identity for the past 5 years, based on the evidence presented, I'm finding probable cause for all charges. The case will proceed to trial. Bail is revoked. You'll remain in custody until trial." "What? No," Christina shouted. "Danny, do something." My son stood up in the gallery. "Your Honor, please, my wife isn't a criminal. She was just trying to help my mother." "Mr. McAllister," Judge Rodriguez said, not unkindly, "your wife has a criminal conviction for defrauding an elderly person. She's been using a false identity. Cell phone records and security footage place her at the scene of 2 attempted break-ins at your mother's property. These are facts, not opinions. I suggest you retain a good attorney for her because she's going to need one." Danny looked at me, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw doubt in his eyes. Real doubt. Maybe he was finally starting to see the truth. The trial was set for 2 months later. In the meantime, I moved back into my own house. The sheriff's department had installed additional security measures, and Trevor had helped me set up a complete surveillance system. If anyone came near my property, I'd know about it. The diner became my sanctuary again. My regulars rallied around me. Business actually increased as word spread about what Christina had done. People wanted to show their support by eating at Rose's, by proving that I was still sharp, still capable, still the best pancake flipper in Montana. Danny didn't come around. Martha told me he was staying with Christina's family over in Billings, still convinced somehow that his wife was the victim in all this. It broke my heart, but I couldn't save him if he didn't want to be saved. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecutor presented a mountain of evidence. Christina's criminal past, the cell phone records, the security footage, testimony from the locksmith who sold her the tools. Testimony from me about the attempted theft of my diner. Testimony from Trevor about the forged documents. Christina's defense was weak. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd made mistakes but hadn't meant any real harm, that she was just a wife trying to help her husband secure his inheritance. But the jury wasn't buying it. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. "Ladies and gentlemen," Linda Chen said, standing in front of the jury box. "Crystal Morrison, who you know as Christina Lambert, is a career criminal who specializes in exploiting elderly people. She did it in Colorado, serving time in prison for defrauding a 78-year-old man. Then she came to Montana, assumed a false identity, and targeted Rose McAllister through her son Danny. She spent 5 years laying groundwork, building trust, isolating Danny from his mother, learning about Rose's assets. When Rose refused to give her access to her bank accounts, Christina escalated. She tried to pressure Rose into signing over her business using fake concern and forged documents. When that didn't work, she launched a rumor campaign to make Rose look incompetent. When that didn't work, she tried to break into Rose's home twice with the apparent intent to steal documents or forge signatures. This isn't a case of a daughter-in-law making mistakes. This is a case of a predator targeting a vulnerable senior citizen for financial gain. Rose McAllister is 73 years old. She's run her diner successfully for 51 years. She's a pillar of this community, and Crystal Morrison tried to destroy her life for $2 million. Don't let her get away with it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous on all counts: guilty of identity fraud, guilty of attempted burglary, guilty of attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Christina faced up to 15 years in prison. Danny approached me outside the courthouse after the verdict was read. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying. "Ma," he said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I didn't believe you, you thought I was a paranoid old woman," I said. "I'm not angry at him anymore, just sad. Danny, that woman targeted you specifically because you were my son. She researched your background, found out about the diner, and set out to marry you so she could get access to my money. You were a mark to her, nothing more. I loved her, Ma." Danny's voice cracked. "I thought she loved me. Maybe she did in her own way, but she loved my money more. What do I do now? You figure out who you are without her. You rebuild your life. And you decide whether you want a relationship with your mother or whether you're going to resent me forever for exposing the truth. I don't resent you, I'm ashamed. I chose her over you. I sold my truck to bail her out. I defended her when I should have believed you. Ma, I don't know how to make that right. You start by being honest. With yourself, with me, with everyone. And you give it time. Danny, I still love you. You're my son. But trust has to be rebuilt, and that doesn't happen overnight." He hugged me then, right there on the courthouse steps, and I let him. Because he was still my boy, even if he'd made terrible choices. Christina was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. The judge cited her prior conviction, the predatory nature of her crimes, and the vulnerability of her victim as aggravating factors. She'd be eligible for parole in 8 years if she behaved herself. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was at the diner doing what I do best: flipping pancakes, pouring coffee, talking to my regulars, living my life. Danny came to the diner a week after Christina was sent to prison. He sat at the counter looking nervous. "Ma, can we talk?" "Always," I said, pouring him coffee. "I want to explain how I got so blind. How I let her manipulate me. You don't owe me explanations, Danny. You owe me changed behavior. I know." He took a sip of coffee. "I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand how I became someone who'd choose a con artist over his own mother. The therapist says Christina used classic manipulation techniques: isolation, gaslighting, making me dependent on her emotionally. That's probably true, but Danny, you're a grown man. At some point, you have to take responsibility for your own choices. Christina didn't make you ignore your mother. You chose that. You're right." He looked me in the eye. "I chose wrong. I chose her lies over your truth. And I'm sorry, Ma. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too. Sorry that you had to learn this lesson the hard way. Sorry that I couldn't protect you from her. You tried. I didn't listen." We sat in silence for a while. Then Danny spoke again. "Ma, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but is there room for me in your life again? I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I just want a chance to rebuild." I looked at my son, 45 years old, looking lost and broken. "Course there's room, Danny. You're my son, but we rebuild slowly. One coffee at a time, one conversation at a time. And you prove yourself through actions, not words." He nodded. "I can do that," and it started there, small steps. Danny came to the diner every few days for coffee. We'd talk about safe things at first: the weather, the diner's business, town gossip. Gradually, we worked up to harder conversations: his therapy sessions, his job search, his plans for the future now that his life had imploded. 6 months after Christina went to prison, Danny asked if he could help out at the diner. Not for pay, just to be useful. I put him to work washing dishes and bussing tables. It was humbling for him, I think, doing the grunt work at his mother's diner at age 45, but he did it without complaint. Slowly, very slowly, we rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't the same as before. There was a caution now, a awareness that trust once broken doesn't fully heal, but it was real. More real, maybe, than it had been when he was married to Christina. Trevor helped me restructure my will and my estate planning. The diner would still go to Danny eventually, but it was protected in a trust that prevented him from selling it for at least 10 years after my death. Any decision to sell would require approval from the trustees, Martha and Jim. It was a compromise, protecting my legacy while still providing for my son. Danny understood. He even agreed with it, said it was fair given what had happened. A year after the trial, the diner celebrated its 52nd anniversary. We had a big party. The whole town turned out. Danny was there, working behind the counter with me, pouring coffee and chatting with customers like he'd always done as a kid. Martha pulled me aside during the party. "Rose," she said, "look at you. You survived a daughter-in-law trying to steal your business, attempted break-ins, a public trial, and you came out stronger. How do you do it?" I looked around the diner, at the people I'd been serving for decades, at my son learning to be part of this community again, at the life I'd built from scratch. "You know what I've learned, Martha? The people who try to steal from you, who betray you, who exploit you, they think your value is in what you own. the money, the property, the assets, but that's not where the real value is. The real value is in what you build, who you serve, the community you create. Christina tried to steal my diner, but the diner isn't just a building. It's relationships, it's trust. It's 52 years of showing up every morning and doing good work. You can't steal that, you can only earn it. Martha hugged me. Frank would be so proud of you, Rose. I think he would. And more importantly, I'm proud of me. The years that followed were good ones. I kept running the diner, and Danny slowly became my right hand. He took over more of the day-to-day operations, freeing me up to do the things I loved most, developing new recipes, chatting with regulars, mentoring the young folks we hired as servers. Danny never remarried. He dated some, but he was cautious now, slower to trust. I understood that. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. Christina wrote me a letter from prison 3 years into her sentence. It was a strange letter, part apology, part justification. She claimed she'd really meant to help me retire, that things had just gotten out of hand. She said she was sorry for the pain she'd caused. I showed the letter to Trevor. What do you think? I asked. Is she actually sorry? Trevor read it carefully. I think she's sorry she got caught. I think she's sorry she's in prison. Whether she's sorry for what she did to you, that's harder to say. People like Christina, career con artists, they're very good at mimicking remorse. It's part of how they operate. Should I write back? That's up to you, Rose, but if you do, I'd keep it brief and non-committal. Don't give her anything she can use to manipulate you or Danny further. I ended up writing a short response. Christina, I've received your letter. I appreciate the apology. I hope you're using your time in prison to genuinely reflect and change. I've moved forward with my life, and I suggest you focus on doing the same. Best wishes for your rehabilitation, Rose. It was formal, distant, but not unkind. I wasn't going to be her victim again, but I also wasn't going to be cruel. Life's too short for carrying that kind of bitterness. By the time I turned 78, I was ready to start thinking about actual retirement, not because anyone was pressuring me, but because I was tired. 5 decades of early mornings and hot grills will do that to you. Danny and I had long conversations about the future of Rose's Diner. He wanted to keep it exactly as it was, a tribute to everything I'd built. I appreciated that, but I also wanted him to make it his own. You've earned this place, Danny, I told him one quiet afternoon when we were prepping for the dinner shift. Not through inheritance, but through showing up, through rebuilding trust, through proving you value this diner for what it is, not what it's worth. I do value it, Ma. This place taught me everything. How to work hard, how to treat people with respect, how to build something that lasts. And yeah, it took almost losing it to understand that. I officially retired on my 79th birthday. We had another big party, even bigger than the anniversary celebration. People came from 3 counties over. The mayor gave me a key to the city. The governor sent a letter of congratulations. But the best part was standing behind that counter one last time, next to my son, serving the people who'd become like family over the years. As I handed over the reins to Danny, I felt peace. Real deep peace. He wasn't perfect, nobody is, but he'd learned, he'd grown, and he'd become someone I could trust again. That was worth more than any amount of money. Danny renamed the diner Rose and Danny's. I told him that was silly, that it should just be Danny's now, but he insisted. This place will always be yours, Ma. I'm just the caretaker, and he was right. Even in retirement, I'd stop by a few mornings a week, pour some coffee, chat with the regulars, check on the new batch of pancakes to make sure Danny was keeping the recipe right. The community rallied around us after everything that happened with Christina, not with pity, but with respect. I'd become a symbol, in a way, of resistance. An elderly woman who refused to be victimized, who fought back, who protected what she'd built. Other seniors started reaching out, telling me their own stories of family members trying to exploit them. I connected them with Trevor, who'd become something of a specialist in elder financial abuse cases. Together, we helped dozens of people protect themselves from greedy relatives. Martha and I even started a support group for seniors dealing with financial exploitation. We met once a month at the community center. It was powerful hearing these stories, realizing how common this problem was. But it was also empowering, watching people find their strength, set boundaries, protect themselves. One woman, 82-year-old Helen Crawford, stood up at a meeting and said something that stuck with me. I spent my whole life being polite, being accommodating, being nice. I thought that's what good people did, but you know what I learned? Being nice to people who are exploiting you isn't nice, it's enabling. Real kindness includes boundaries. Real love includes accountability. She was right. I'd learned that same lesson the hard way. Now at 83 years old, I sit on my porch most evenings and reflect on everything that happened. The betrayal, the fight, the recovery, the rebuilding. It was the hardest thing I ever went through, harder even than losing Earl. But it taught me things I needed to learn. That family isn't automatic, it's earned. That trust is precious and has to be protected. that your value isn't in what you own, but in who you are and what you contribute. Danny's running the diner successfully now. He's even talking about opening a second location in the next town over. I'm proud of him, proud of who he's become. We have dinner together every Sunday, him and me and Martha and Jim. We don't talk much about Christina anymore. She's part of the past, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. Sometimes folks ask me if I ever heard from Christina again after that one letter. I did once. She got out on parole after 8 years, moved back to Colorado. She sent me a Facebook message last year, apologizing again, asking if I'd be willing to talk. I didn't respond. Some doors once closed should stay closed. But I did hear through the grapevine that she's working at a nonprofit now, helping women transitioning out of prison find jobs and housing. Maybe she really did change. Maybe she found redemption. I hope so, for her sake. But it's not my job to absolve her or validate her redemption. My job is to live my own life well, to continue building relationships that matter, to enjoy the peace I fought so hard to secure. Rose's Diner, excuse me, Rose and Danny's Diner is still going strong. It's still the best place for pancakes in Montana. And on quiet mornings when I stop by, I'll stand at that counter where I spent 51 years of my life and I'll feel grateful. Grateful for the fight because it taught me my own strength. Grateful for the community that supported me. Grateful for a son who found his way back. Grateful for friends like Martha and professionals like Trevor who had my back when I needed it most. And grateful, most of all, that I didn't go quietly when Christina tried to take what was mine. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand up and say no. No to exploitation. No to manipulation. No to the people who think your age makes you weak. I'm 83 years old. I've outlived my husband, outmaneuvered a con artist, and outworked most people half my age. And I'm still here, still strong, still flipping pancakes when the mood strikes me. That's my legacy. Not the diner, not the money, not the property. My legacy is showing people that you're never too old to fight back, never too tired to protect what matters, never too alone to find your strength. And if some young con artist thinks she can take that from you, well, she's got another think coming, because this old lady's got bite.